Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I haven't done a lot of UFO stuff lately, so I figured I'd jump in and do a few of them. I found an interesting story, and I'd heard this story before, but I had heard it. I found multiple versions of this story, so I tried to find some common elements in these, and I went and I wrote up what I could find that every story contained the same bits and pieces. Because there's variance in this story. Some people say it was Gleason himself and Richard Nixon that went and did this. Other people say it was Gleason and an army officer that Nixon sent. You know, so I'm gonna start off by prefacing this. First off, let me say that there is absolutely no evidence. There is absolutely no evidence that this story is at all true. Okay, it has been recounted many times by many different people, most notably by Jackie Gleason's friend Lucille Ball. This is the Jackie Gleason story. For those of you who don't know who Jackie Gleason is, he was in Cannonball Run. Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed, Smokey and the Bandit. He played the cop, Buford T. Justice. You know, the man made that show funny. It was just hilarious. He was also in the Honeymooners. He was a very great creative comedic talent. Losing him was a serious blow to the entire world. That man made people laugh. It was freaking amazing. And again, I want to say this story has been recounted many times. There's no absolute evidence that it's true. It changes a bit here and there depending on who's recounting it. I'm going to use the most common elements and try to make some sense out of it. Okay, here we go. Evidently, Gleason and Richard Nixon, the president Richard Nixon at the time, were good friends. Gleason had an avid interest in the unexplained and especially in UFOs. Nixon and Gleason were playing golf one weekend in the early 1970s, and the conversation turned to UFOs. Gleason asked Nixon if there was anything he could reveal as president that could shed light on the UFO mystery. Nixon shrugged and gave a non-committal answer, and of course, Gleason not wanting to, he's a president, you don't want to press it, so Jackie Gleason changed the subject, and they went on with their game. The next week, and I've heard it was the next week, I've heard it was 2 to 3 days later, whatever, a few days later, a short time later, Gleason was at home and there was a knock at the door. It was Nixon himself, flanked by 2 Secret Servicemen. Nixon told Jackie to grab his hat and coat because there was something that the president wanted to show him. And when the president says that, at that time, the president says that, you grab your hat and coat and go, especially when he's your friend. The quartet got into a nondescript sedan and drove to a nearby military base in Florida. And I've heard 4 different recounts of which base it was, so a military base. Nixon used his credentials to get them past the gates and into a highly restricted area with lots of security. He's the president, I imagine he can get any damn place he wants to. They left the 2 Secret Servicemen in the car, and Nixon escorted Gleason into a warehouse. Now, I'm using the Nixon version here because it's the one that's most recounted. There are also people have said that it was an army officer that Nixon told to go and show Gleason this, but I'm using the Nixon version. He showed the comedian debris, which he claimed was from a downed UFO. One section of the debris was levitating above the concrete floor. So this was a piece of debris, broken and beat up and whatever. And it's floating above the floor, a couple feet off the floor. In the early 1970s, yeah, you take note of that. I'm just saying. It's not the magic trick where the guy does the hula hoop around the girl. I'm saying this was a piece of debris that was floating above the floor. In another room, Nixon showed him 3 hermetically sealed containers, which with glass viewports. which contained what Nixon claimed was the occupants of the crashed UFO. Gleason reportedly said that Nixon told him that 2 had died in the crash and 1 died a while later. The beings he described were the small gray aliens. And again, there's no bit of evidence that says this is true, but I would trust Lucille Ball over any government agent, period. In modern time, I would trust Lucille Ball over anybody in the government at all, including the president. That's just my opinion. Gleason's wife, after he got home, Gleason's wife reportedly said that when Gleason returned from the trip, he was seriously affected. He was white-faced and slumped in his chair. He was clearly in shock for several days. This story, in various forms, has been recounted many times, and the core of the story has never changed. Jackie Gleason, by all accounts, was a straight shooter. He wasn't prone to wild bouts of fancy. He was a great comedic actor, but he was a bit of a control freak, meaning he controlled the camera angles, he controlled the script, he controlled the story. I mean, he was on it. For him to invent a UFO story to tell people is ridiculous, at least in my opinion. Now, that being said, some of the people who have recounted this, I don't know about. I heard the version where Lucille Ball recounted it, and I gotta say, I trust her a hell of a lot more than these other people. So that's main. I kind of stuck with her story here, but I omitted the stuff that other people really drastically changed. This is the core story, and this core story, no matter who you're listening to, this core story never changed. So you gotta think about it. It may be true. I'm not saying it is, but I'm not saying it's not. So I figured you would enjoy this in case you hadn't heard it. And if you get a chance, check out some of Jackie Gleason's work in The Honeymooners and in he played a pool player. I want to say The Hustler. I think that was him. But I know for a fact he was in Smoking the Bandit, and those movies are funny. If you've not seen those, go check them out. Jackie Gleason was brilliant. When he died, it was crap. It was not good. The world suffered. We've been suffering since. At any rate, I hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all.